And again, what we see looks very similar to a post or a page for that matter. You get all the data that you want there. You get the title, you get the slug, excerpt, and you can actually turn things off when you're registering that custom post type as well. So for example, cast and crew member has custom fields, but there's no option for comments. And it doesn't make any sense for somebody to come along and comment, so we just turned it off. All the things that you can control with a custom post type. Are there any questions about that? And you guys are welcome to stop me at any point in time. Sorry if I didn't mention that earlier.
How does that differ from just a typical post? I mean, other than it's labeled as that, is that just...
You can actually perform function. It goes into the performance thing that we were talking about. That prefix that I was talking about a minute ago, the ATL_events. You can actually target that in the database now and run query posts specifically on. You can query posts specifically on that tag set. So now I can do things. I've logically separated them from the other posts that are part of the site. And we'll see when we look at the theme development that you can actually set specific templates for specific custom post types. So it creates that nice little flow where you're kind of working with WordPress and not really against it. So that was the data, and we'll come back to the plugin in a second. So going back to those relationships, a very similar thing happened with the blue boxes, the sponsors and locations. Once we came across custom post types, it was really apparent that we wanted custom taxonomies. And you could argue that, okay, well, why not just create a category of sponsors and you would just check those for all the different bits of data that belonged or related to sponsors. Well, it goes back to actually your question, which is, it's kind of a maintenance situation. It's a lot easier to pull things out a certain way. For example, when you think about tags and you tag something, blue, green, and red, there's no higher level tag that says colors. You really don't know from a metadata perspective what those tags meant. So in a way, creating the custom taxonomies in this case allowed us to logically group those things not only from a development perspective, but from what the client was used to seeing. They're used to seeing sponsors. We don't need a long list of hierarchical categories, one of which is sponsors, and then let them check the ones underneath that. It's a lot easier to break them out. They were already broken out in our minds anyway, so again, why not develop it that way and save the headache? So going back to seasons, we actually were kind of scared of seasons at first. We were really worried that we weren't sure how we were going to do it exactly, and what we found was we kind of just left it alone, and we didn't really come up with it at first. We thought, okay, well, worst case scenario, we'll just put everything with a custom taxonomy and give every bit of data a season taxonomy and just tag it with that. But we didn't really like that. It didn't feel clean, so we just, like I said, we just kind of left it. And what we found in the end was that it kind of worked itself out. Going back to the show's bit of data, if we think about Dracula this season, it's not really just Dracula. It's Dracula 2010, right? Next year, it's going to be Dracula 2011. Now, WordPress doesn't allow you, or any website for that matter, to really say, okay, well, this is shows in Dracula, and then next year it's shows in Dracula again. You have to make it unique in some way. So really, by just following a simple convention in our page slugs, we implicitly got season information. So, for example, we'll see in one of these shows, but Dracula was Dracula 2010, 2011. And that suffix in the slug kind of created that loose relationship and was really all we ever needed for seasons. Because at that point, the web kind of takes care of the rest. It automatically archives it, and we didn't have to build anything. So it actually paid off the gamble there. We were scared, but in the end, it worked out. Yeah.
It's going to work.
Yeah, there were some concerns with that because again, that was the biggest specification by the client. So, but we were optimistic, and like I said, it actually paid off. So. Again, it was just that thought that, okay, well, we know we can do it natively, so let's just see what WordPress ends up giving us, and it worked out. So we were actually pretty proud of that one. Custom taxonomies looks very, very similar to custom post types. Again, it goes in functions PHP, and it's a simple register call for that taxonomy. The first argument being the data name that you want to use, which is what you'd use to query that information directly. And then all the arguments you pass in. So labels, as granular as you want to get, are they hierarchical? So are they tag-based or are they cloud-like, where they can have a parent-child relationship? Sponsors in this case doesn't really need a parent-child relationship, so it was false. Does it have a query bar? So is it going to pass your template something that you need to look at this information? Yes, true in this case. And there's a slew of other ones. Again, check the codex. Has great, not only related links, but also just a write-up by the WordPress core team and community on the taxonomy itself. So let's look at that code. So again, in functions PHP, we just set up a action for init to call the functions to create all of the custom taxonomies that we wanted to use to build those relationships around that data. So locations, sponsors, series, positions, productions. Seeing that in action, to the sponsors analogy, again, all this is built by WordPress for free just from that simple register function. We get the interface, which looks very similar to a category or a tag interface in the WP admin. And we also get a nice little widget that gets added to the side of whatever we register that taxonomy to. So in this case, we bound that taxonomy relationship to events. And so we see in the corner now that we have sponsors. And we can, sorry, I'll zoom in on that. So we have the sponsors information, looks very similar to how you enter a tag. And you can choose from any of the major ones there. You can add multiple. It's all based on the options that you set. So that is custom taxonomy. So going back to that scheduling plugin, it was one of those things where we didn't really want it to be a traditional plugin. Traditionally speaking, if you downloaded an event management plugin, it would really do probably everything for you. It would do, the descriptions, it would have the buy links, it would have the scheduling, it would have all the pieces that would encompass event management. Well, we didn't really need that. We were using WordPress natively for the event data. We just needed kind of a subset of that data, again, to create not only a relationship, but to supply that complex scheduling. So we wanted it to be more streamlined, where we could just build the layers on top of it. And when we talk about theme development in a minute, you'll see where that kind of becomes important because, again, we're not looking to package out this plugin and use it in the community. This is very specific to this site because of its complexity. And that was okay with us. We knew that we were kind of breaking that native plan, so at this point, again, it's okay to make it custom. But what we really cared about was ease of data. And like I said, we're going to see that in the templates, but also from a page content level. I'll show you a page that is kind of neat that actually uses some of the plugin data directly and in just kind of an interesting way. So what we ended up choosing here as far as the design pattern is concerned was a data access object. And that is a little geeky, a little program, a little tech there, but you see it all the time in WordPress if you've done some theme development or even looked at the core or built plugins yourself. The WordPress database object is a perfect example of this. You do a lot of things with that, the WPDB variable where you can query posts, you can run specific queries, you can get result sets back. You basically, the point being is that you ask through an object for some data to get that data and then just give it back to you so you can do whatever you want with it. So again, something like as simple as query posts is a really good example of a data access object already built into WordPress. So we really tried to mirror that functionality. And so talking about some of those in our plugin, if we just kind of scroll through some of this, you see bits of information in here where we're querying that, or we're asking this plugin for certain bits of information. So it's kind of tough to see, but you can get the excerpt for a certain post, or you can get information about that schedule from the URL variables. There's others in here that make a little bit more sense. Get results is a very common one. Is event in series? So a lot of things that made sense for this custom plugin that was very simple to just ask either from the theme or from a page directly. So we can see where we're kind of using that on our front page. And I'll bring up the actual front page. But Viz, our via integrated scheduling plugin, again, the namespacing being very important. We see where we asked for the upcoming featured shows, right? So the plugin doesn't output the front-end markup. It doesn't really do anything specifically. Again, we just built some layers on top of it to get that data back and then do whatever we needed to do with it. So going back to that home page, we see that this featured shows section brings back that data and we're able to output it differently on this template than, for example, we did on this template. So the visit section has this nice little content section that has on one side the now playing and the upcoming. And so we did this actually with a shortcode. So even the client at that point could say, hey, put this show info in, oh, sorry. They could say, hey, put this show info inside of the content. I want the now playing, and I want it to be called this. And it's going to be a 50-50 type of thing. So not only mixing and matching the data, but also the actual output that it showed on screen. And that was the visit page that we looked at a second ago. So developing the plugin in that fashion allowed us to, again, build all these layers on top of it, which was really important because the data was really complex. It was something that we knew WordPress couldn't handle, but we didn't want to build it all outside of WordPress. We knew we could do that. We wanted to push it and keep as many bits as we could native and then the rest outside. And just to let you see administrative-wise what it looks like, it's very similar to a Google Calendar type thing or any calendar bit out in the cloud. You can choose your days of the week. And then all that gets stored in a database table, again, that we access through the plugin. All right. I'm going fast. All right, so theme development. Theme development's a little bit tricky, and it's something actually you could spend a whole talk on. Obviously, there's been talks here about theme development, and really some of the other pieces that we talked about too, but generally speaking, I'm kind of a PHP purist, so I don't really like theme development. I honestly see some of the worst PHP code I've ever seen when I looked at WordPress themes, and so I really just was kind of turned off to it right away. But it's understandable because the point really is that a WordPress theme traditionally has been built to be used for blogs anywhere, right? So the community has, like I said, literally thousands of themes that you can download, and they have to be applied to really whatever setup you have for your WordPress blog. So really what I want to talk about is more, I guess, the philosophy when building a theme for a complex site. And really, don't be scared to make something that is tightly integrated with your particular install. Like I said, we have bits of code there that are asking our scheduling plugin or these custom post types. They're relying on that bit of information. It would be impossible for us to package up this theme alone and then put it out into the community. It just wouldn't make any sense. So traditionally that would be bad, but I think as WordPress moves forward to be more of a content management system and more of a site where you're pushing the boundaries, more where you're pushing the boundaries to build a site like this, is that you can't be scared to kind of tie those things together. And to just kind of prove that WordPress, again, this isn't necessarily fighting WordPress, is to take a look at this excellent flowchart that WordPress has, and this is going to be horrible on this screen, but this is out on the codex, and you can't see all these things in the back, but well, really even up here for that matter. There's tons of paths here. The top path, for example, is, for the home page, it's going to see if a homepage PHP exists in your theme. If it doesn't, it's going to go down to index on the end. We have all sorts of paths here, but one to just kind of look at, or going back to those custom taxonomies, right? So like I said, when you first look at the site, you would think, well, gosh, maybe you guys used, custom templates everywhere, right? The homepage had a custom template, and then the